know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers, and welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. And this week's episode, we are talking about an album released in the year 1980, and we'll get into that more shortly. If you head over to patreon.com/punklotopod, you'll get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. And last week, we're recording this before I've done it, but there should be a new episode of the 21st Century Breakdown. This is me on my solo because we also recorded for our $5 producer tier, the I Hate Myself 4 Songs EP. So to get access to that, you sign up for our $5 producer tier, which also gets you access to an exclusive poll, and you get your name said on the show. And before we announce next month's poll, we'll go ahead and shout out our producers. So thank you to Dave Brown, writer of the newsletter Oklahoma Lefty. Thank you to Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Nerd Radio. Thank you to Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls, back in action now. And I think the most recent issue, as of recording, he talked about that Fay Ray record that I talked about on I'm Listening a couple weeks ago. And thank you to Zach in Oregon. So if you want your name said on the show, sign up for the Patreon $5 tier, and you can vote in September's poll, which we can announce now. I have entered in The Clash's The Cost of Living EP from 1979, and the Falcons' God Don't Make No Trash from 2004. And what did you nominate for us?
So I nominated 1981's Six Pack by Black Flag and 1991's To Mother by Babes in Toyland.
Yeah, so a interesting batch of records there. Don't see a clear winner. I do see two clear losers, though.
Yes.
So it might be between two of these bands, but we'll see. Maybe they're in the mood to talk about some Lawrence Arms side projects. And then you can sign up for our $10 tier, where you get to choose the album that we devote an entire episode to, and we have 2 of those incoming, so be on the lookout for those. I think we're going to do them on the other side of our 250th, and we'll probably squeeze them in before we start doing the Halloween Spectacular and birthday spanking stuff. But busy couple weeks coming up, so we got a decent amount of stuff coming. Episode 250 will be next week, which will be a fun one. And then we'll have to time it and figure out what weeks we want to do our Halloween Spectacular stuff. But a lot of exciting things going on in the Punk Lotto world. I didn't really mention this a few weeks ago, but it was our 7th anniversary of doing the show, of launching the show. We launched it in 2018, and
Lucky number 7.
Yeah, I hope so.
Are we? Well, this is our 7th year.
So
we have done 7 years. We are entering our 8th year.
Yes, I believe that is how anniversaries work. Yes,
that's how you count years.
Yes. We were entering our 8th year of doing the show.
All right, so we passed the 7-year itch.
Yeah.
We did take a break.
It wasn't that long though.
For 3 months.
Yeah. That was more COVID in the world and all that stuff. So yeah, and I don't think we're gonna wind up having to take a break soon either. So that'll be good. We were talking about jobs and stuff a couple weeks ago, and I think we have determined that I think we'll be fine. I don't think we'll have to take any breaks. So
we'll make it work. We'll
figure it out. We might switch around. Maybe we switch around a day an episode is dropped due to scheduling issues. But yeah, I don't think we'll have to take any breaks. But all right, let's get into it. So this album that we're talking about today was released in the year 1980. So what is going on with punk music in 1980?
So punk music in 1980, it's a pretty good year. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. And there are kind of some distinct styles, I think, at this point in punk. We're past that initial wave of 77 punk. The UK, we've always said, started doing post-punk immediately. And even at this point, that's really starting to develop and change. And I think some of the bigger styles. There's certainly stuff that falls in between, but some of the bigger styles at the time, you've got your American post-punk, that continuation of the CBGB stuff, that growth in other areas. So you've got like your Ohio stuff, and you got your Athens, Georgia stuff, and you got some New Jersey in there. I mean, I guess sort of a continuation of the CBGB New York scene, but you've got stuff by Talking Heads. They put out Remain in Light, the second of the Eno records, probably one of their most critically regarded, one of their biggest records.
I find that very frustrating because it's like one of my least favorite Talking Heads records too. It's got Once in a Lifetime on it, which is like the big song, but
yeah, that song doesn't fit that album.
It doesn't. No, it belongs on the next record more.
Yeah. You've got Crazy Rhythms by the Feelies, their debut record. They would then take like 6 years before they put out their next record. And that's kind of the origin of the Hoboken sound, if that's much of a genre at all. But Freedom of Choice by Devo, their third LP. Wild Planet by B-52s. Gyrate by Pylon. So lots of fun, kitschy, goofy stuff in American post-punk. I really love that tendency of American post-punk bands. The ones that took punk in like that arty direction took it in this goofy, fun, campy direction, like Devo, B-52s, Pylon, especially. Across the pond, UK is going pretty goth. We've got the second and last Joy Division record, Closer. Closer?
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 I would assume if it's Joy Division, it's Closer.
Yeah, but it is their closer.
It is.
You've got 17 Seconds by The Cure, Kaleidoscope by Susie, which is a great record. I love that one. In the Flat Field by Bauhaus. Even The Damned are leaning more and more into goth with the Black Album. Not full goth yet, but
it is funny how quickly the UK punk scene just like moves on to the next thing. You know, like they are doing post-punk by the end of 77, you know, with Pink Flag and Wire. And then 78 is a very post-punky year. 79 is too. And then, yeah, we're in 80 and there are like, now we're doing goth. It's like, man, y'all can't spend any time on a genre, can you?
Yeah. And not exactly goth, but dark and weird. Killing Joke's self-titled debut probably fits more with like, there's a Fall record this year too. And
yeah.
There might be a Pill record. I'm not sure. I didn't get too in the weeds. But yeah, and that's not even like, honestly, I barely even scratched the surface on where else the UK is going, because you're getting into even synthier stuff, you know, dark wave and synth pop stuff. I found it interesting. We did 79 pretty recently on the show.
And 81.
And 81. So I've kind of talked about some of the ska from this time period too, but I thought it was kind of worth mentioning. You've got Just Can't Stop It by The Beat, Absolutely by Madness, More Specials by The Specials, and then even you've got like Sandinista by The Clash, which has plenty of ska influence on it. You've got Nobody's Heroes by Stiff Little Fingers, which has a lot of reggae and ska influence as well. Stiff Little Fingers kind of just continuing their we're doing what The Clash does kind of mentality. So kind of makes sense there. You've also got a big wave, not exactly a wave of connected bands, but I think a lot of Railroad Time, kind of people thinking along similar lines and drawing from similar influences. There's this really big neo-psych strain going throughout music in this time period, and in early 80, that kind of like manifests into more of a specific scene when you get into like the Paisley Underground stuff in LA in the early 80s, which we're not quite there yet, but there is sort of a psych influence. And there's also kind of the big music thing going on at the same time, that both of these trends I think are more connected than is obvious, but also become like the basis for like shoegaze. So U2 put out Boy, XTC did Black Sea, Echo and the Bunnymen put out Crocodile, Psychedelic Furs did their self-titled record, Soft Boys did Underwater Moonlight. Like, not all of this stuff sounds exactly the same, but I feel like there's a similar thinking in terms of, like, layering and psychedelia and those kinds of influences. And then, still a pretty big year for New Wave. Pretender's self-titled record. Elvis Costello put out Get Happy. You got a Dexys record, which also could kind of go in ska, but...
That's a fun record, too. I really like that record a lot.
But it's also, like, Northern Soul, so, like, it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which I feel like that's what New Wave is. It's rock music doing a lot of different things. Blondie's getting a little more electronic on Auto American. Adam and the Ants put out Kings of the Wild Frontier, which is a big, goofy, weird record.
Yeah. That I love.
The Cars put out Panorama. I'm not sure where that is in their discography, but it's kind of middle late, I think.
Yeah, like they'd already done some of the bigger ones, right? Candio was already gone, and the first record. Let's see. Let's look while we're looking right here. Heartbeat City's 84.
Panorama was the third record. Okay, so
yeah.
not as late as I thought it was.
Right. It's right after Candio, yeah.
I would have thought Shake It Up was before Panorama, but
yeah.
I was wrong.
And I don't know that Panorama has like one of their big songs on it either.
No.
If it is, it's not one that I know by name, you know. I think most of their hits are off of Heartbeat City and Candio and the self-titled. But
there's Oi, you know, there's some other stuff we'll get into more in relation to the album that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But speaking of other releases that we haven't mentioned, what did you almost pick?
So, I had a couple options here. I wanted to go with something that we haven't done a million times or talked about a million times on the show, so I did choose some stuff that a little bit more left field than what we've done a bunch of times. So, I almost picked the Jam's sound effects. A big chunk of that is we did we probably did that Jam episode in like our first few months of doing the show.
Yeah. First 40 episodes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. This is the Modern World. A record that I think we both love that record. And yet everyone was like, it's such a huge disappointment because the UK scene hated follow-up records. I think it's just all it is. I think they just hated the concept of a band doing a second one.
Oh, what? They're doing another one? Boo.
Is that why the Sex Pistols never did a second real record? We don't want more than one.
Oh, they did something different on it.
Oh, we don't like that. But now your third album where you did even more different things, we love even more.
That's the best one. Yeah, always.
Oh, we hated that you changed, but then the third one they changed again, and they're like, we love it. Okay. Very inconsistent. The sophomore slump is a thing. I don't think that's what was happening in the UK at the time. I don't know. I don't know what was happening.
The Jam's second album is not a sophomore slump. It's just not. It's a good record. The Damned second album, not actually as bad a record as it is perceived historically. It's more that they disliked making the record.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that might have to do with like them cranking these records out so fast back to back, and they're just not ready for it because a lot of these people were not musicians before they got big. So I think it might be part of it where they're like, oh no, we used up all of our ideas. Oh no.
Yeah. And that's we're not historically where the sophomore slump comes from. It's like your first album, you had 5 years to write all those songs. Yeah. And your second album, you've got a year.
And I do think a lot of those bands too were also like, I think punk's a fad. I think we need to change. And then that's where you get these weird records that people outright reject. Like people think that Second Clash record's terrible. And like you and I are like, it might be their best.
That's their best one.
We have the history of, we just have to be able to look back at their entire catalog and judge it as a whole. And then, those, I guess in the moment is where you're like, hey, this isn't Janie Jones. But I did consider the Wipers' Is This Real? And we talked about doing the Wipers a few weeks ago. I had said that I want to do one of these Wipers records, especially Is It Real or Over the Edge? And then when Is It Real came up and I chose it for a nomination, I was like, but we talked about them recently. And we did that Hot Snakes record, which was inspired by the Wipers. So I was like, maybe we need to wait a minute to actually do one. I guess the trick is to stop nominating them or picking them as maybe options, so that way I don't talk about them. But
Next time the Wipers is a maybe for me, it's very likely I'm going to pick.
Okay.
If it's one of the first 3 records, because I think
not-
any one of those records, there's something to talk about.
Not Land of the Lost.
Not Land of the Lost. I don't think that... A good record. A very good record. A great record. I did talk about that on I'm Listening sometime this year, so...
Well, we're chasing clicks on this show right now, so
yeah.
We've got a good little run of episodes that are doing pretty well numbers-wise, so I kind of want to keep that momentum going a little bit to see what we can do.
I threw that wrench of Hard Girls in there, so we're going to see.
You had 2012. I mean, what was going to happen in 2012? I mean, your other options that you almost picked were like, I don't think these would have moved the needle drastically either, so...
Yeah.
Though sometimes when you pick something based on what might have clicks, it doesn't actually pan out that way, too, so... I think this episode will, though. So
yeah, it should.
Yeah. And then my third option, a little bit of a left field choice, but I thought about talking about Greatest Hits Volume 1 by the Cockney Rejects. Not an actual Greatest Hits. That's just what they named their first couple records. I have heard this record in the past. I listened to it probably in college. I remember liking it, and it was one of those things where, like, Cockney Rejects were considered, like, a great band, and I never knew why. So I did actually listen to this record in college, or maybe right after college. And I was like, this record is really good. I think I get it now, why people love the Cockney Rejects. I think they're oi. I think that makes them a little bit more like pigeonholed or siloed into the oi catalog of bands. But this record's good. I think it's actually a really good record. And it probably would have been interesting to talk about because that's a completely fresh thing that we've never covered. But I did not go with that. Instead, I went with Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables by the Dead Kennedys.
Efficiency in progress is ours once more. Now that we have the neutron bomb, it's nice and quick and clean and gets things done. Away with the enemy, but no less valued a property. No sense in war, but perfect sense at home. The sun beats down on a brand new day. No more welfare tax to pay. And St. Salem's gonna be flashing a light. Godless millions whisked away. At last we have more room to play. Our systems go and kill the poor tonight. Gotta kill, 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 kill the poor. Kill, 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 kill the poor. Kill, 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 kill the poor tonight.
Boy, I'm glad you did.
You didn't want to talk about...
pick the Cockney Rejects.
It's pretty good.
It might be fine.
Well, let's get into the stats. So the Dead Kennedys are from San Francisco, California. They formed in 1978, and this is the band's debut full-length album. It was released September 2nd, 1980 on Cherry Red Records in the United Kingdom, and then later on IRS Records in the US, and later reissues on Alternative Tentacles. The personnel on this album. Look, I could give you their real names. I could do it. But I actively don't want to.
I don't know if I know any of their real names.
I remember the first time I learned Jello's real name, and I was like, I don't want to know that. That was my thinking. So I've actively tried to not learn any of their real names, and I successfully forgot any real names I did learn.
Oh, right. It's so basic.
It's... You can look it up. You'll be disappointed. You'll be disappointed that a guy named Jello Biafra's real name. It's plain as hell. Yeah, I don't want to do real names. I want to believe in Santa Claus for another episode, or Santa Claus, as we'll be talking here in a moment. So we're going with the gimmicks. So on this record, we have Klaus Fluoride on bass and vocals, Ted on drums, East Bay Ray on guitar, and Jello Biafra on vocals. And the album was produced by Norm and assistant produced by East Bay Ray. If you look at the liner notes, all of their real names, maybe not all of their real names, but actually, I think everybody's real name is in the liner notes of this record. So if you look, you can find it. They did a funny little cheeky little thing where they put their real names for a different role on the record too, where it would be like, oh, the album art was produced by Jello's real name. And then like, there's some other stuff on the record too, but Yeah, it's just funny. They hide names, which is kind of fun. I appreciate that.
Right. Assistant producer.
Mm-hmm. It's using his real name.
Ray's real name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the kayfabe that we're maintaining.
Yeah.
It's like not going to say it.
I'm not revealing gimmicks on this show. We are not unmasking La Parka on this. We're not unmasking Rey Mysterio on this podcast.
Except for Ted. Who's Ted?
It's just Ted. He's just Ted.
Ted.
He's the guy with the least story, is what Ted is.
Played in other bands, but
not a lot.
Nothing I have ever heard of.
Nope.
So why did you pick this record?
Chasing those clicks, baby. No, actually, a few weeks ago, when we did the Minute Work episode, our good buddy Jason in the Discord was like, I'll be glad when you guys pick some real punk records. And I think he said that, like, there's a Dead Kennedys record in 1981 that you could have done. And I think that's stuck in my head as like, if we come across Dead Kennedys again, that might be one to do, because we have previously covered them. We did their final record, Bad Time for Democracy. We did that with Justin Smith from Sweat, Ghost Limb, Graph Warlock, Million Bands, Vitriol Records. Very fun episode. But that's my least favorite Dead Kennedys record.
Right.
And
the least representative Dead Kennedys record.
I agree with that too. It is the least like the rest of their catalog. Maybe except for In God We Trust. That might be the closest to that one, but
yeah,
that is their hardcore record, which Bad Time for Democracy is another hardcore record.
Well, arguably all of their records are hardcore records.
True. They are kind of a weird band in like where you slot them in the American hardcore scene at the time. They were part of the same hardcore scene, kind of.
Not really, though.
Yeah, they're a San Francisco band, so they weren't in the same group as the LA bands, but yeah, it's a little different. They're a little different band too, just kind of in general. But yeah, I mean, the Dead Kennedys they were probably the band, like the classic hardcore band that I got into the hardest in college. So we would have heard stuff like the Ramones and the Misfits before I went off to college, and then I would have heard some songs by Black Flag and Dead Kennedys, but in college, when I had like a high-speed internet for the first time, like this is where I started really diving into the genre and studying all of this kind of stuff that I've read about for years and never actually heard for myself. So I dove headfirst into the Dead Kennedys catalog, and they were the band that jumped out to me the fastest as far as like, oh, I love this, and I want to hear all of the records now, like as much as I can by this band. So yeah, they were kind of my favorite band of this era for a while, and then I burned myself out on them, much like I burned myself out on most of the bands from this time period. I could only listen to Minor Threat so much. That complete discography is not going to hold me over forever. Dead Kennedys had 4 LPs, so that made them a little bit more to discover and more to listen to. But yeah, ultimately I just listened to them so much that I got tired of them and a little worn out by them. So I went actually a really long time without listening to much, if any, Dead Kennedys. I would only run across them if it was just, out at a show and they were playing a Dead Kennedys album between bands. That was kind of really it. I hadn't listened to any of their records for a long time, so.
Yeah, I mean, my history is pretty much your history. Like, it was, Dead Kennedys were one of those baby's first punk bands.
Yeah.
And, like, the earliest we would have heard them was Police Truck. In the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack. And it was just like, I enjoyed that song on that soundtrack, but like I didn't really make any mental note of who it was, like what band it was. So like hearing that song later, I was like, oh, I know that. It's like, that's in Tony Hawk. And it was Ramones. I feel like our trajectory of getting into punk, if you're not counting pop punk bands of like hearing Green Day and Blink-182 on the radio or anything like that, like or bands that we went out of our way to get into, it was like Ramones, Misfits, Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like Minor Threat and Dead Kennedys are right around the same time, to where I couldn't, Black Flag, all around the same time. I couldn't tell you which one I heard first, but.
Right. I do remember listening to the Misfits probably earlier than a lot of the other ones. The Ramones.
Well, because we got the Misfits like discography CDs from our neighbor.
Yeah, the collections 1 and 2. Yeah, we had a friend who he loved the Misfits, so he burned us copies of those collections, which is most of the catalog. Like there's more stuff out there, but I think that it's all like alternate takes as far as like every original song is on those 2 comps, I think.
Yeah. It's really what you need.
Yeah, I honestly, we talked about it when we did the last Misfits record we covered, and we were like, oh, you don't need any of their LPs, you just need these 2 comps, and they're better than in the actual LPs, I think.
Yeah.
They're interesting to hear them within the context of a record, but yeah. Dead Kennedys, on the other hand, were an album band, though. Like, it was very much, they had 4 LPs, they had the In God We Trust EP, there was like a live record, no, 2 live records, which are archival, and a comp that collects like the B-sides and some rarity type stuff. So
yeah. My experience listening to the Dead Kennedys is very similar to yours, of like getting into them a lot as a teenager, and having like burned CD copies of their stuff, and that your iTunes having like all of their albums in it. And we definitely like really dug into their history and their story a lot. They were definitely one of those bands that we shared with our neighbor, because it was kind of like, he got us into the Misfits, but he was like one of those metal guys that gets into the Misfits because metal heads all like the Misfits. It's like, oh, Metallica covered the Misfits, so you go listen to them. That kind of is how he came to punk. And like, so like he introduces us to the Misfits, and then we're like, oh, we kind of run with that like era of punk bands, and we get into like Black Flag and Dead Kennedys, and like we share that stuff with him. So like I remember really spending a lot of time with him, just like watching, like there's like a Dead Kennedys documentary I think we watched, and there's like watching like the Donahue clips and that kind of stuff with him. And so it was like we introduced the Dead Kennedys to him, and then like we kind of like both explored their discography together. But I also very much burned myself out. Like I think by the end of college, by the time I graduated from college in 2011, my interest in listening to the Dead Kennedys is like hearing a song or 2 a year, and it just drops off for like 10 years. Like it really was from the time I graduated college until a couple of years of doing this show that I would go out of my way to listen to the Dead Kennedys, to specifically sit down and listen to Dead Kennedys LPs. Like it really didn't pick up for me until the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of, I'm trying to think of like what it is that drew me specifically to the Dead Kennedys versus a lot of their contemporaries. And I think it is a combination of the lyrics, and the performances. And I think they were just like really talented. Like everybody was really talented in that band in a way that a lot of the contemporaries weren't that talented at their instrument. They just knew how to get cool sounds out of them. Like these guys felt like, oh no, these are real musicians. Like they started in 78, but they have musical backgrounds on their own. So, and that them being a 78 band, they predate American hardcore. They're more a result of the punk explosion from the UK. But also, there's a little bit of that, like, East Coast CBGB punk scene that I feel like informs a little bit of what's going on with the Dead Kennedys, too. So, yeah, they just felt a little different from, Black Flag and Minor Threat, and even the Misfits, too. And the Misfits were doing their own little weird thing, too.
Yeah, Dead Kennedys, like, I guess for me, like, early, they felt provocative in that Misfits way. Shocking and being like, oh, whoa, he said that?
Yeah.
Which is bad in a couple of cases, but but also like I understood it went deeper than just being shocking and provocative, and like I really did kind of grasp that there was real political meat behind a lot of what Jello was writing, and like I didn't entirely understand it, and I think I like kind of lost the beat on it for a while. And that's kind of been something in the last 5 years where I've come back to Dead Kennedys and listened to these records, and I'm like, oh, that's actually about this or that, or like that's actually kind of still really relevant.
Yeah, the joke was always that, like, yeah, you listen to a Dead Kennedys record and he's, like, singing about very specific political figures that, like, no one remembers 20 years later. You know, like...
He's talking about, I mean, to get into the lyrics on this record, you know, California Governor Jerry Brown.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jerry Brown's a Democrat.
Yeah.
You know, and you think of California as this liberal state, and you're like, but what's he saying? Is he saying that the liberal state of California is actually bad? And it's now like it's 2025, and it's like, oh, Gavin Newsom's a Democrat, and he fucking sucks.
That is what's really funny, is like, this record is like almost 40 years old. And, or it might actually be, right? Yeah, it is over 40 years old, right?
Over 40 years old.
Yeah, it's 45 years old. So it's very funny to think of that. I feel like within the last like 5 years, your average voter is finally embracing where Jello Biafra was in 1980.
1980, yeah, right.
Your average like left-leaning Democrat historically voting person is now like, these liberals are terrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, Jello was trying to tell everyone way back then that
Yeah, you're
liberals
like-
were bad.
D. Boone singing about El Salvador, and you're like, what's that about? And you go look at what that's about. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is the equivalent today? You know, and
Yeah.
yeah. Not to get too deep on the record.
The landlord's here to visit. They're blasting disco down below. Says I'm doubling the rent cause our building's condemned. You're gonna help me buy City Hall. Oh, we can. You know we can. Oh, we can. You know we can. Let's fix the landlord man.
Yeah. That's right. We do have a whole also ran section.
Yeah.
So what scene are we talking about here, and who are the contemporaries?
So Dead Kennedys, broadly speaking, American punk and hardcore. Like,
Yeah.
your 77 punk, 78 punk continuation, and also that's kind of concurrent with American hardcore, and those early releases in American hardcore. Biggest records, and I think all of these share a lot of sonic similarities in a lot of different ways. Circle Jerks, self-titled. Keith, very similar to Jello in type of writing, in voice.
Yeah, actually, that's true. They are very similar. And I can't stand Keith Morris. So that's kind of funny.
I always wish I think I'd like Circle Jerks more if the music was better.
Yeah, it's fairly standard. Yeah, it's what Black Flag had stopped doing at that point.
It's not even as good as Black Flag. Because, like, say what you will about Greg, he wrote good riffs.
Yeah.
Couldn't play solos, but he wrote good riffs.
Yeah.
X released their first LP, Los Angeles.
More weirdos.
More weirdos. Yeah. Lots of rockabilly influence. There's that similarity, too, with the Dead Kennedys. Similarly, the Cramps, Songs the Lord Taught Us, came out. More into rockabilly and garage rock. Lux also sounds a hell of a lot like Jello.
Yeah, they're kind of in that same, like, range. I think Jello has a bigger range than Lux does. But yeah, they are kind of in that same, like, standard Jello vocal range. And then, yeah, Lux has that similar sound, yeah.
The Ramones did End of the Century. That's the Phil Spector record.
Yeah. Such a weird record.
Hardcore, American hardcore, beyond Circle Jerks. It's not a big year for LPs. You do have some pretty significant EPs, though. Minutemen put out Paranoid Time. Also, D, very early on, sounds like Jello Biafra.
Yeah, he kind of develops his own voice a little more later.
He
but yeah.
brings the pitch down. And
Yeah, he has a lower voice, yeah.
yeah. Black Flag put out Jealous Again. And Agent Orange did Bloodstains. So there's your surfy side of hardcore.
Yeah, there are some similarities there in what's going on in those bands, yeah. Well, I was looking at Cherry Red in 1980, because that's the label that put this album out initially. I guess I could have looked at IRS, too. I should have probably done that, but I didn't. So Cherry Red in 1980 released a Runaways compilation. There's weirdly like 2 versions of it. One of them is like labeled featuring Sherry Curry, and the other one is like featuring Joan Jett. It's like weird, kind of like, I guess, shopping this Runaways comp. There's a Misfits comp called Beware, which is not one that I was even that familiar with. I think it's just their 2 early EPs combined together as one and released in the UK. And then as far as like original stuff, we have albums by Hollywood Brats, an album by the British Lions, which is a post-Mott the Hoople band. We have the Hybrid Kids, Richard Strange, Emotion Pictures, and Glaxo Babies, who have a pre-pop group band member in there too. I don't know what the hell Cherry Red Records is. And it's still around today too. Like, it's still an active label. What is this stuff that they're putting out? Very weird. And why was it released in the UK first? I didn't actually get a clear answer on that when I was doing research, because there was so much to talk about. But
The Cherry Red Beware EP, Misfits EP thing, like, that was intended to be a record for them to tour the UK on. Like, that was the intention of it. It was, let's take some songs, compile some already out there material onto one release and release that in the UK so that people would know who they are and they can go on tour.
I wonder if those Runaways are the same deal, because Runaways are done by 1980, and Joan Jett already had her first record out. So yeah, maybe, and I think Sherry Curry did some solo stuff too, so maybe that's what's happening there too, is to sell some post-Runaways solo projects. Yeah, weird. I don't really know how they got hooked up with Cherry Red.
Yeah, the Beware EP is like, that's got a whole story. Like, that was supposed to be the Misfits tours with the Damned, and then the Damned had scheduled somebody else. That's when they get arrested in England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all right, let's get into the story of the Dead Kennedys. And I mentioned this before we recorded, but I'm very excited we're doing this record because some of the most famous things about the Dead Kennedys all happened before this record came out. So I'm really glad we're getting to talk about a lot of this stuff. So the story section is going to be pretty lengthy. So we'll pause to discuss more deep into some of these things as we get to it. But there's a lot going on here. So prior to the band, Jello Biafra was born in Boulder, Colorado, to a librarian and a psychiatric social worker / poet.
Completely tracks.
Oh, everything tracks with these people. We'll get into more. It's like, oh, I get it now. That's how you became how you were.
Oh, yeah. Beating his parents.
Yeah. So in 1977, he began as a roadie for a Colorado band called the Ravers, who would later change their name to the Nails, and they would put some stuff out. He would set up equipment at their shows, and one of the most notable shows is the Ravers opening up for the Ramones, who Jello cites as one of the biggest influences on him getting into music, specifically Joey Ramone's voice and the type of music they're playing. But he really thinks of Joey as like the big thing that'd be like, oh, I can do this.
He chose Joey Ramone as his primary influence and chose to do the exact opposite with his voice. It's funny.
Yeah. But he also enjoyed their lyric writing because they always put like humor into a lot of their songs. And so there's a lot of humor in the Dead Kennedys lyrics too. So, man, the Ramones were so influential. Like, we have the entire UK punk scene to thank for the Ramones for playing like a couple shows there. And every punk at those shows started bands. And I feel like it's the same thing in the US. Like, I feel like the Ramones playing in DC probably sparked off, that whole scene, playing in Chicago, playing in California. Yeah. So he starts a band called The Healers, who never played live, but they did actually record some songs, including a very, very, very early version of California Uber Alice. I listened to it. It's unlistenable. It is like noise. It is like improv, we don't know how to play instruments noise. And it sounds terrible. And I don't know how, I assume there's lyrics in there that they used for this song, but woof. Rough. He winds up leaving Colorado to attend University of California in Santa Cruz, but then drops out after a year and makes his way up to San Francisco. East Bay Ray is a native of San Francisco. He got his love of music from his civil rights activist parents, and he grew up listening to jazz. And he went to UC Berkeley and planned on becoming an architect, but found it artistically limiting. And prior to the Dead Kennedys, he played in a rockabilly / doo-wop band called Cruisin', who released one single, called Vicky's Hickey. It is a doo-wop song.
Yeah.
It is like, it's like, yeah. Weird. Why was there a doo-wop band in the mid-70s?
So far, both of these are cartoon characters. Like, these are exaggerated versions of a character. These feel like a Quentin Tarantino, like, character introduction.
Fox Force 5?
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Okay. Klaus Fluoride was originally from Detroit, Michigan, and was given a guitar at the age of 8 after seeing Buddy Holly on the Ed Sullivan Show. Is Klaus Fluoride a lot older than the rest of them? Because
I'm pretty sure he is.
And then he tried to learn how to play guitar, but because he was 8 years old, his hands were too small for the neck of the bridge, so he couldn't play it. And so his music instructor told his parents that he would never become a guitar player.
He's 10 years older.
He's 10 years older? Wow.
Yeah, he's 10 years, because the rest of them are all about 66, 67 now.
Okay. Yeah, because I was reading that, and I was like, why are all his influences and early memories so much older than everyone else? So that makes much
He's
more
like
sense.
Billy Zoom being a lot older.
That makes sense, yeah. The guitar he was given, I can't remember the name of the brand. It wasn't one that I remembered, but he later found a Gibson, and he could play that one. So whatever guitar he had, the neck was just too big for his little hands. So he forms his first surf band called the Woodsmen at the age of 14. And then he later plays in what they called his first real band, the Liberators. I assume that the Woodsmen didn't play anything but in the garage. Or maybe they did a school thing, but probably not. He then moves to Boston in 1967 and played bass in a band called Thursday Parade, and briefly with Billy Squier in a band called Magic Terry and the Universe. That's a terrible band name. But that's a very 60s sounding band name. He then moves to San Francisco in 1977 and got interested in punk after attending shows at the Mabui Garden. So yeah, Klaus Fluoride is the Billy Zoom of the Dead Kennedys, because he had a music career 10 years before he started playing at the Dead Kennedys. So the band initially forms in 1978 after East Bay Ray posts an ad in the local paper looking for bandmates. It says something like, guitarist looking for band members to start punk band. Everyone who becomes a member of the Dead Kennedys joins by responding to that ad. So Jello, Klaus, and Ted all join from the flyer. Except for 6025, who Jello met at a show and asked if he would pose as their drummer. I'm assuming they hadn't found a drummer yet. They just wanted this guy to be like, can you stand in so we look like a real band? And when he learned that he actually played guitar, he was like, oh, okay, do you want to be our second guitarist? So the initial lineup consists of East Bay Ray on guitar, Jello Biafra on vocals, Klaus Fluoride on bass, Ted on drums, and 6025 on rhythm guitar. I always forget about 6025.
Yeah.
So Jello initially tried to write songs on the guitar, but he couldn't play well enough. So Klaus recommended he just sing the riffs and melodies. And he would record them to tape, and then they would play them at band practice. So by all accounts, what they have said, and what Jello himself has said, is that he's not a conventionally skilled musician in the sense that he can't play shit. He can play no instruments. Which explains why the Healers was an improv band, because he did not know how to play anything. But they do say he's an excellent composer. So I was always kind of wondering, if you look at the lyrics or the liner notes of this record, Jello is credited as the song, like the music writer on most of the songs on the album. And I was always surprised by that because he didn't play any instruments. And I thought it's like a Danzig thing where like he could play guitar competently enough that he could write those songs. Because Danzig could write songs on guitar and piano and then tell everyone else how to play them.
Yeah. It's like Iggy Pop's kind of the same way. It's like he can technically play instruments, but you never ever see him playing anything.
Yeah.
Because he's just like not good enough to just play the songs. And he's just better at just being a vocalist.
So it is wild to me that the guy who not playing any instruments got all those music writing credits on the record. That becomes an issue later, which we'll talk about briefly. But yeah, it's just like, that's weird. But I think it's because he was just like, and you'll go, you know, and you'll play. Like, is that what he's doing? Like,
I can't. Just Jello scat singing riffs at you.
And you have to figure
They're
out
all
how to do it.
jazz guys, so I guess it works. Like,
That's true. That's true.
because I just saw like Klaus's dad played in like jazz bands in New Orleans or something
Yeah, yeah.
too.
So 6025 winds up leaving the band in 1979. Jello says he only lasted 6 months. I think they say it's closer to 8. But Jello said that he was the actual most talented musician in the band. He just was more interested in prog rock, and he quit over musical differences. They were basically like, you're not interested in what we're doing. We don't really like your ideas, so we're good. And so he quits. So they remain just a single guitar band going forward. They record some demos. They play their first show at Mabui Gardens in San Francisco. They continue to play locally, and due to their inflammatory nature of their name, would often play under pseudonyms. So they would play as the DKs, the Sharks, the Creamsicles, and Pink Twinkies. People were always like, I can't believe this band. You called yourself the Dead Kennedys? And people were like, it's so offensive. It's so shocking. I mean, I guess it hadn't really been that long since RFK and JFK were both assassinated. But there is something to be said about 70s parents being terrified of everything. Because in the UK, they were doing all that Nazi shit just to piss off their parents, who were, survivors of the war.
Yeah.
Which I also think is a little fucked up, to be like, fuck you, mom and dad. I'm going to emblazon myself with the thing that terrified you as a child.
With symbols of race hate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's all shock value shit. And it's what's more shocking than that? I mean, yeah, that's pretty shocking in 1977.
You know that the intention is not to promote racism, but it's like,
are you a racist?
you still could have just done a different thing that was shocking.
Yeah.
Put like a dick on it or something, Like,
yeah. Well, a lot of bands did that too.
Yeah.
But the Dead Kennedys themselves claimed that they were actually fans of JFK and RFK. And they said that when JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King were assassinated, that the American dream was assassinated. And if they would just waited a few years, then Dusty Rhodes would have come along and saved them all. But so yeah, he
knew hard times.
Yeah, of course. He's the son of a plumber. So I get calling themselves the Dead Kennedys was actually kind of offensive at the time. But they also were like, we're basically saying dead American dream is what we're saying by calling ourselves that.
Well, so it's kind of like, it's offensive to like normies who are like, oh, you can't make fun of a president being assassinated. But it's like also kind of offensive to like hippies, which would have been a lot of people in San Francisco.
Yes, Jello famously hated hippies.
Yeah.
Like he did not like them. I don't know what his specific problem with them is. I can guess things
that they're fake.
Yeah, I mean, is that
I would think that
ultimately
would
what it is?
Yeah.
They don't go far enough, I think might be part of it. But yeah, they pretend to be more left than they actually are.
They all sold out,
Yeah, that's true. So they released their debut single, which was California Uber Alles in 1979. And the song The Man with the Dogs is the B-side to that single. And then they decided to go on a poorly attended East Coast tour as well, which they weren't ready for because no one knew who they were. So they had a single out, and that's it. And of course nobody's going to show up. In 1979, Jello ran for the mayor of San Francisco and came in 4th place. And he ran on a campaign that was, I think, full of a lot of jokes and some silly ideas. But I think the concept of him running was meant to be a commentary on the left and the right. I think he genuinely was, against... He was trying to highlight corruption in politics, and he felt like that everyone was just extremely corrupt at the time. There's some fun stuff in there, there's the story about he was running against Dianne Feinstein, and she did some stunt where she was sweeping the streets of San Francisco for an hour. So Jello thought it was funny, and he took a vacuum cleaner and vacuumed the leaves on Dianne Feinstein's lawn for her.
His ideas, some of his other platform, his policies were forcing businessmen to wear clown suits within city limits.
Yeah. Yeah, he had some goofy ideas, but then he also had some good ideas. They said that his platform was written on a napkin at a Peer Ubu show. So I think he didn't think he was going to win. He had no actual intention of trying to win. It was purely this is a commentary on my behalf of voting in San Francisco, which, extremely liberal city at the time. Dianne Feinstein winds up winning this, and that just shows you how old fucking Dianne Feinstein is.
Yeah.
Was? She's dead now, right? Yes.
He definitely had, he wanted to legalize squatting, which that shows up in Dead Kennedy's lyrics, and requiring police officers to run for election.
Yeah, in the neighborhoods that they're patrolling, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that would work today now because I don't think they patrol the same places anymore. I think they just go where they're assigned stuff now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a concept that I've always heard of. People really far left people are like, police should be elected officials. They should not be.
If you have police at all, but
yeah.
We don't got to go down that rabbit hole. But
yeah, if you're not an abolitionist.
I feel like he had one that was maybe this was somebody else. I think he wanted to ban cars.
Yes, he did.
In downtown, in city limits, which there are districts in San Francisco now that are closed to traffic. It's local traffic and commercial traffic only. The city did kind of go in that direction, and they should have.
He also wanted to pay homeless people to go panhandle in rich neighborhoods. He wanted to pay them money and then and now go panhandle here. Yeah, so he had a lot of ideas. I don't know if they were all good, but he had some good ideas. A lot of funny ones. But yeah, Dianne Feinstein becomes a mayor for 10 years after that.
Yeah.
So in 1979, Jell-O and Ray also found Alternative Tentacles, which eventually just becomes Jell-O's label. And then 1980, they followed that up with the Holiday in Cambodia single with Police Truck as the B-side. So in March of 1980, right before the band goes into the studio to record what will become their debut album, was the infamous Bay Area Music Awards. If you know anything about the Dead Kennedys, history and story, you'll know what's coming, but I love it. So they were added to this award show to perform, and they were meant to give the festival a new wave credibility, and they expected them to play their song California Uber Alice. So they get up on stage, they start playing the song, and then they stop. Very much like Elvis Costello on SNL. Jell-O makes a comment saying, "We're not a punk band, we're a new wave band." And so then that launches into them playing a new song. So they're wearing white shirts with S's painted on them, and they pull their ties from behind their necks, and now it looks like they have dollar signs on their shirts. So they start playing the song. It's called Pull My Strings, and it's a song that's basically going after the music industry, what it takes to be a star, and it's skewering, the idea of them being a new wave band and them being selected for their new wave cred, and just them kind of rejecting that entirely. It's a song they only played twice ever. They said that they played it one more time a week later at a Mabui Garden show, and then never played it again. They never recorded it in studio. If you listen to it, it's not really a great song. The music itself is, I get why they didn't record it, because they're just this is a joke, a throwaway joke that we did. The lyrics are very funny, and it's all about the lyrics, because the music itself is just kind of basic, but it includes a My Sharona riff in there too, and yeah, entertaining, very funny. If you've never heard it, you can hear it. It's on Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death, which is a compilation. So luckily that was recorded. So
the arsenal, I keep enough gases. Got a daily knife, I keep trying to ram it. Been sitting there for years, I'm gonna have at it. I go through the fence, I run in and grab it, crazy. Crazy, 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 yeah! Now I got my own muscle gas in my pocket. Cut down on a tree, on a branch, and a rabbit. I'm a country girl from the Saturday cover. So I know what you got. So the chicken is the bus go crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy,
now it's time to get in the studio. They recorded at Mobius Music in San Francisco, and it was engineered by Oliver, it's an Italian name, DeCicco, maybe? I don't know. I could have looked it up, but he owned Mobius Music, and the album was produced by Norm, which was just the Dead Kennedys. Norm was Oliver DeCicco's pet cat, and they just said that Norm recorded all their albums except for Bedtime for Democracy. They just went with like a fake, we're producing it ourselves, but we went with a fake name. Like everything in the liner notes is. It's different names and fake names. So, I don't know. I guess they were just being funny. And it worked. They called it, they named it Norm. I don't know why they did that when Ray also has an assistant producer credit. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe Ray didn't do as much with them as producer, except for on like a couple things. I don't know why they chose to not include him as Norm, but maybe he did more than them. Maybe that's part of it. But there are some additional artists on this record, though. 6025 does appear on the record, playing guitar on the song "Ill in the Head." Drug Me features Ninochka, who was in the band The Situation and is Jello Biafra's future wife. She plays keys on this record. That song also features Paul Roessler, who was in The Screamers and 45 Grave, and he is also Kira Roessler of Black Flag's older brother. He also plays on the song Stealing People's Mail. And then Chemical Warfare features the Rock Mountain Arsenal Choir, which is just one of those things where you just have a bunch of backing singers and you just call them a fake thing. It's a bunch of names. The ones that are notable, though, are Barbara Hellbent, who was the band's manager, Bruce Calderwood of the band Flipper, Chi Chi, who is another manager of the Dead Kennedys, I'm assuming just at different points. She managed them, and Dirk Dirksen, who was the manager of the Mabui Gardens. And then also, like, all of the Dead Kennedys are backing vocalists in there, and they all have joke names, too. Like, Jello's credited like 3 or 4 times on the record as different things. One his real name, one is Jello, one is Norm, and one is one of these choir singers. So most of the lyrics on this record are written by Jello Biafra, but there are a few exceptions. Forward to Death is written by 6025. Your Emotions was written by East Bay Ray. California Uber Alice was co-written by Jello along with John Greenway. John Greenway was the guy in the Healers when they were in Colorado. And Viva Las Vegas, obviously, is a cover of the song made famous by Elvis, but it was written by Doc Pomus and Mort Schumann. So, we were talking about the music credits. Interestingly, Jello is credited as, like, the main songwriter on here as well, as far as all of the music, which I do believe is part of the lawsuit in 2000s. It's them being like, hey, we wrote these parts. Yes, you composed them and told us what to play, but we still had to write the riffs and play the parts and figure out, we had to translate your mouth sounds to instruments. So the only other songwriting credits to get on this record are for Holiday in Cambodia, which has a credit for Jello, Ray, Klaus, and Ted. Ray also gets songwriting credits for Kill the Poor and Your Emotions, and 6025 gets Ill in the Head and Forward to Death. The album cover. Very famous album cover. This is the line of cop cars on fire in a black and white photo. The photo was taken by Judith Carlson, who was a Bay Area photojournalist, and the photo was taken the night of the White Riots, which happened after the light sentencing of Dan White, who was the man who killed Harvey Milk and the San Francisco mayor, George Moscone. I didn't know that story. I read it. That is a ridiculous story. The Harvey Milk assassination. I know there's a movie about Harvey Milk, but I never saw it. Do you know the story at all?
Not really. Not the details.
I mean, it's very long and convoluted, but it is worth... I'll do it as short a version as I can. I do recommend reading the Wikipedia article at least. So there was the mayor of San Francisco, and there was Harvey Milk. He was like essentially like a lieutenant mayor. I don't know. I don't remember the exact word. Supervisor was what he was called, but like basically second in command. And this Dan White guy was on the city board. He wound up resigning from the board because he was mad about something. And then he like tried to come back, and they were like, okay, yeah, we'll let you back on the board. But then they're like, wait a second. Nah, let's not bring him back. And so then he got like pissed off. He was like front page in the papers. There was like this public feud going on. Then this is so weird. Then like a week later, Jonestown happens. And like, which were all San Francisco people who moved to Ghana with you know, it's the mass suicide. It's the,
Yeah.
you know, not really suicide, mostly just poison to death, but
Yeah.
they're all San
mass
Francisco.
murder, but yeah.
Yeah. So then Dan White's like, oh, see how it is? Front page news one day, and now nobody's talking about me. So he was jealous over a mass suicide murder. So he eventually breaks into he escapes metal detectors by breaking into the basement of City Hall, finds the mayor, shoots him, kills him, finds Harvey Milk, shoots him, kills him, and then he escapes, and then eventually turns himself in. And so the White Riot occurs because he went through his trial, and one of the defenses in his trial has been dubbed the Twinkie defense. And part of his defense was that he was a super healthy guy most of the time, except the night before he committed it, he ate a bunch of junk food, and it put him in a terrible mental state. And it became the Twinkie defense.
I got a sugar high and I went and killed the mayor.
Yeah, right. The next day. An obviously absurd defense, but the jury was all white Catholics. All white Catholics. And Harvey Milk was a gay man, and San Francisco had a really big gay population at the time, including lots of gay immigrants specifically brought into the country to live in San Francisco. So no black people, no gay people were allowed to be on the jury. So, you know, corruption, of course, at its highest. And he got 7 years sentencing for murdering 2 people. So that's what caused the White Riot. People were like, what the fuck? And they're like, this is bullshit. So one of Jell-O's campaign promises was to build a statue of Dan White and then to sell vegetables and cans that people could then throw at the statue. That was one of his other ones. Also, when he ran was like a year after Harvey Milk and the mayor had been murdered. So it's also kind of wild that he was doing that at the same time. Then Dan White killed himself a year later after he got out of jail. So wild. Read everything, because that's the bird's eye view. And whew.
Yeah.
So yeah, the classic Dead Kennedys logo is designed by Fallout Productions, which is Winston Smith and Jayed Scotty. Scotty didn't do a ton of stuff, but Winston Smith did tons of art for Alternative Tentacles throughout the years. It's released first on the UK label Cherry Red, and it actually hits the UK charts at number 33. And then Kill the Poor was released as a single in 1980 in October, but it is actually an earlier recording, though apparently the differences between the single version and the LP version are negligible. Like, no one could tell the difference. So, and it is backed with Insight. So that's a lot of stuff that happened all before this record came out. And a lot of those are like some of the most famous stories about the Dead Kennedys and Jello Biafra. So
Yeah.
it is interesting that so much of that happened before even their first record. And they continue to be just interesting.
Yeah. The Dead Kennedys have such an interesting story, and like all of that being, you know, in the first 2 years of the band, and they haven't really released any albums yet. It's very similar to like the media circus around like the Sex Pistols. And like I'd always connected a lot of like, you know, the Dead Kennedys' provocativeness and like the political angle of a lot of their lyrics, and the like going on TV and, you know, having those infamous stories. Like the Dead Kennedys really are kind of the actual American equivalent to the Sex Pistols. Like the Ramones, you know, musically precede kind of everybody else, and like they are like which one started it, you know, if you want to have that argument. It's like, but the Ramones themselves are like, they have their own story, but they're not in the limelight for it. You know, they're not going on TV. They're not running for office. Like for most people, they were just a band that you got their records and you saw them live. And that was kind of it. Like you didn't hear a whole lot of stories about the Ramones, who they were as people. Like they do the movie Rock and Roll High School, but that's like 5-6 years into their career.
And it's not really about them. It's just they're a band.
Yeah.
In the movie, because it's about that girl who wants to get the Ramones to play her high school or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
it's more in common with Detroit Rock City than it is Great Rock and Roll Swindle. You know?
But yeah, the Dead Kennedys are very much, it's like the bands that have the stories that really kind of rival the Sex Pistols story. It's like Dead Kennedys and Germs, I feel like, are the ones who just have the most crazy things happening and just like really provocative, over the top characters. And obviously like The Germs goes into like a similar, direction of like explosive endings, but then The Dead Kennedys, like, for me, I guess when we were talking about like our history of getting into bands, like I kind of actually glossed over the fact that the Sex Pistols were a pretty big one for us early on. And I don't think I ever really realized how a lot of my interest in the Sex Pistols at that time of being a kid getting into punk is surpassed by the Dead Kennedys. Like, it's like, oh, there's the story, and also the music's a lot better, and there's a lot more of it.
Yeah, I mean, so, oh, man, I think, when do you think the last time you maybe listened to this record? It had to have been a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to this one, because I think when I've listened to Dead Kennedys records recently, it was later records. It's the one that we did on the show. It was probably like Plastic Surgery Disasters. As far as listening to Fresh Fruit, I don't know the last time I listened to this record. 10 years or more that I listened to this record from beginning to end.
Yeah. I mean, the last one I have is like 2009, according to my last FM. I mean, I don't think that's 100% accurate, but I don't have any more after that. So, yeah, it's been a long time since I listened to it. But putting it back on, I was like, oh, I remember all this. Like, I listened to this album so much that I can not listen to it for a decade and still remember almost everything about it. It shows you how much I listened to it, how much it's part of the punk canon, how critically regarded it is. It is very well regarded, still, historically. I'm imagining there's new people who find them all the time. But yeah, it's not something I'd heard in a very long time either. Revisiting it, what did you think?
It's such a fun record. It's such a great formula of a band. Their sound is incredible. The songs are super memorable.
Oh, yeah.
And there's great songs on here. Kill the Poor.
Oh, yeah.
Let's Kill the Landlord rules. like the biggest songs probably still suffer a little bit from overexposure to me. Very similar to like the big hits from the Sex Pistols LP, where it's just like, I don't actually need to hear California Uber Alles and Holiday in Cambodia. I think they are good songs, but they are still just a little bit overplayed. But there's fun, weird little, I don't know, like deep cuts, like Stealing People's Mail, and like, I don't know. I think it's still a great record. And it's, I would say this record is not as memorable to me as Plastic Surgery Disasters, because I think if I look at the track listing of Fresh Fruit, I'm like, Your Emotions, I Kill Children, Funland at the Beach, like maybe they don't immediately jump out to me as like what songs they are. They're definitely familiar when I listen to them. If I look at the track listing for Plastic Surgery Disasters, though, I'm like, I could sing you every one of those songs probably. Really, the only one that I'm like, Dead End is the only one that I'm.
Yeah, Plastic Surgery Disasters is my favorite Dead Kennedys record.
So I think Fresh Fruit. I think Fresh Fruit, a great record, not as consistently good, but it holds up. It holds up very well. Yeah,
personally, Plastic Surgery Disasters is my favorite. That's the one I go to the most. I like it better as a record. It is funnily got probably the least amount of story out of their records, but it just musically is my favorite. But Fresh Fruit is like right there behind it. It's my second favorite record in their catalog. It's probably more important than Plastic Surgery Disasters historically, the timing wise and everything. I mean, even though it was like a year later, right? That came out. 82 is when it came
82.
out. Yeah. So I think by 82, other new, shinier bands have come along. We already have Damaged. In 81, I think, is Damaged. And yeah, there's more like American punk bands that are hardcore bands, especially, that were taking up a little bit more attention. So Dead Kennedys were a little bit of the like, not the new hotness. But this record's phenomenal. Like, lyrically, it's very funny. I read some of these lyrics. Like, okay, I Kill Children is a really great example of a song. It's a song about a serial killer. Like, that's what the song is. But it just says, I kill children, like a million times in the song. And people were so upset by that song. And it's just like, no one understood like sarcasm or tongue-in-cheek or just dark sense of humor in music at this time, because it's just like, why are you getting so mad about this song? Like, they're trying to get a rile out of you, but it's just kind of weird. Which also, the song Funland at the Beach is also about dead children. It's about like, I think about children like falling from a ride and dying. It's like, ugh, that's actually really dark. But Jello
Someone
says,
sabotaged the roller coaster. Yeah.
yeah. Jello says though, he's like, he says he considers "I Kill Children" to be one of his weakest songs lyrically. He's like, I was trying to get in the mind of a serial killer to write a song from that point of view, but I also don't think it's my best work. But yeah, I mean, Kill the Poor, it's about killing the poor, specifically about like with nuclear bombs. I think it's more meant to be like, politicians, we got rid of all these poor people finally. Forward to Death is just about forward to death.
Well, let's Kill the Poor. It's like, yeah, it's like it's the conservative, like, I mean, he's got lines like Jane Fonda on the screen today, convince the liberals it's okay. Like, it's just, yeah, it's conservative fantasy of just eliminating all of the poor people and getting rid of all of the crime and taking over all the property that they're devaluing.
Yeah, Forward to Death, that one's written by 6025, and apparently Dirk, who ran the Bowie Gardens, he pulled him aside and was like, are you okay? Because the song is just about looking forward to death and like, being ready to die. And they're like, it's so depressing, you know. It's not funny either. I guess that may be the difference, but also what written by Jello. Yeah, I mean, when you get drafted, it's about being drafted and being, you know, sent to war. Lynch, the Landlord is about, you know, slumlords, basically. I mean, I could go through every single song, but they're all pretty standard, straight ahead. California Uber Alice is, the song about Jerry Brown, which everybody was like, Ronald Reagan was the governor of this state before Jerry Brown. Why are you writing a song about Jerry Brown? And it's like, because I hate hippies.
Yeah.
But
Jerry
also
Brown with his rock star girlfriend, Lena Ronstadt.
I feel like it's a little more than just I hate hippies. I think he is going after neoliberalism, which is where this is the time period where neoliberalism becomes a thing. So that's more of what he's going after here. He was a Green Party member. He ran for president in like the 2000s as Green Party against Ralph Nader. He didn't get the nomination, obviously, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jello's always been left of Democrats. That's definitely...
Yeah. And many times, like, a lot of his songs are, like, going after the rich and conservatives, but he also goes after liberals fairly regularly, too. He went after both sides pretty regularly. I think when he went after, like, conservatives and rich people, that's where the more cartoonish, goofy stuff comes around, because that's, like, easier to do with them. When you get to him talking about, like, the liberals and the Democrats, he is way meaner and way harsher to what they're doing, which I think is fair. I think, you know, it's a party that kind of, pretends it's more left than it is. And it's still center-right. And Jello and the Dead Kennedys are firmly in their further left. Jello is like, I'm not an anarchist, I'm not a socialist, but I am much more further left than... He doesn't like to pick a specific lane to be under, but... Because he's also like, I like taxes. I think taxes are good as long as they're used for things that actually help the people. And so he's not anti-tax. He's not that far, you know, which is a more anarchist standpoint. But
I mean, not to like aggrandize Jello Biafra too much. I do think he is a little bit like theoretically limited.
Yeah.
Like he's probably not grounded enough in a political theory. He does just kind of like have these sort of occasionally just kind of like vaguely leftist kind of populist reactionary kind of positions. And like the association with Green Party is also kind of like one of those weird things where it's like what the Green Party says they believe in sounds great, but also the Green Party only exists every 4 years.
Yeah.
So, like, what exactly are you doing in the meantime? I think that's a fair criticism of that kind of like, I'm left of Democrats, but otherwise kind of politically lazy. And not to say that Jello Biafra is like politically lazy.
Well, he's not a politician. I mean, he's run for office a few times, but I don't think he's not an actual politician, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of like, I think he's actually been involved in like actual, you know, community organizing and at least at like his level of being like doing charity events, doing things for, you know, humanitarian aid. And like, I think he's actually put actual money into that, or at least his time into that.
Yeah.
I don't think, I think that someone like Jello Biafra, I guess what I mean to say is like, when you really try to like put Jello Biafra's like politics, you know, under a microscope and go at it with a scalpel, it's like you find a lot of inconsistencies and like some wishy-washiness, but I think the general bent of his political stances and a lot of what he says is like, that's pretty good, and it's not what a lot of people want to hear, and he needs to say it, and he does actually go out there and say unpopular things. And like you said, like being meaner and harder on liberals than he is with conservatives. It's like, it's so easy. It's shooting fish in a barrel to make fun of like conservatives. And it takes a little bit more like precision, I think, to be critical of liberals and get your point across. And I think that is something he is really good at as a writer.
Yeah. And I think fortunately, he's one of the ones who stuck to his guns. Like, he still is very left-leaning. I think he's a little more like goofy now. I don't know how to describe some of his more later stuff.
We've had a lot of Bush era, we've had a lot of Trump era kind of Jello Biafra stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of that stuff is where he kind of leans more broad. You know, it's more just like resist lib kind of Trump sucks kind of orange man bad type of humor, like, yeah, which isn't the best, and it's not his best stuff, but
no. But I also think at this point he's just tired. You know, he's older. He's like spent his whole life doing and saying all these things, and like nothing has changed really throughout most of his life. Right. So he's probably just like over it. He's like he's ideological, but he's not. He's like, in practice, I don't think he's like trying to get any real change anymore, because I don't think he thinks it can happen. I think he's a little more nihilistic now.
Sure, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I'll come sing a Dead Kennedy's song with you.
Now he's doing it with if he's around, he's guesting now, which is funny. Which he just did it like last week. That was the Gizzard Lizard one, yeah. Yeah, because like some of his most recent stuff was like making fun of like Tea Party era conservatism, and it's like, brother, we're like deep in Trump times. Like,
we're
Tea Party?
Past Tea Party.
No one's Tea Party anymore. Yeah,
that's just the Republican Party now.
Yeah, yeah. But I am glad he's not one of those ones who just went right, which happens very frequently in punk music for whatever reason. I don't know what happens there. I can't explain why they go right, but
like also like, from the other perspective of like sticking to his guns, like he hasn't come out and is like endorsing any Democrats for president.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's been consistent about that too, of saying, I think ultimately saying like neither party is very representative of what people want.
Yeah. Well, let's do the aftermath. So they would go on to release several albums, but this would be Ted's only record with the Dead Kennedys. He would leave the band to pursue a career in architecture. Why did half of the Dead Kennedys want to be architects? I don't know. They make money. I think that might be the reason, but I don't know. He gets replaced by D.H. Peligro, who actually just passed away. Was it this year or last? I can't remember.
That was last year?
I think so. And then they would release the EP In God We Trust, Inc. in 1981, and the albums Plastic Surgery Disasters in 1982, Frankenchrist in 1986, and Bedtime for Democracy. No, that's not 1986. Why the fuck did I do that? It's Frankenchrist in 1985, and Bedtime for Democracy in 1986. And the band would wind up breaking up in 1986, mainly due to the stress of being in the Dead Kennedys and always on trial, literally on trial for indecency. Klaus would wind up releasing solo music. East Bay Ray would do some solo albums as well and play in the band Candy Ass. Jello would go on to release a number of spoken word albums, as well as records collaborating with the artists DOA, No Means No, Mojo Nixon, and the Melvins, as well as playing in the bands Lard with members of Ministry, and Jello Biafra and the Guantanamo School of Medicine, which is his most current band, and a number of other bands. Most of them are just one-offs, but some of them I was like, I don't even remember that one, but he had a lot of them. And I think we talked about this when we did the Bedtime for Democracy episode, but in the 2000s, the rest of the band sued Jello Biafra for songwriting credits and unpaid royalties. They won that case and began touring as the Dead Kennedys again with different vocalists over the years. I believe they've had 3 vocalists. Let's see. So when they reunited, they had Brandon Cruz on vocals from 2001 and 2003. He was a child actor, but he was also in the band Dr. No. So that was like his punk band that he was in. Then it was followed by Jeff Penalty, who he was like a filmmaker. What was he was from? He played in the Eyeliners. And yeah, I don't think he was as well known as being a musician before. And now the current singer is Ron Skip Greer, who has been the vocalist since 2008, making him the longest running lead singer of the Dead Kennedys, because he's been with them since 2008. He's still with them as they play now. He is from the band The Winona Riders. Very weird. But the Dead Kennedys have never released new music after their reuniting in the 2000s, so or the 90s actually. I'm glad they never did new music. I think they're smart enough to be like, no, we're just gonna play the old songs. No one wants to hear new Dead Kennedys songs.
Yeah,
from not Jello.
They didn't Jerry only Misfits themselves,
which I'm appreciative of. I have no interest in seeing them live.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd go for free.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think about that. I'm just like, would I? If they were just like right here and I could go see them. But I don't know. It'd have to be cheap. Like, and easy to get to.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't really want to go pay real money to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. I'm glad they don't record anything, but I also didn't go see Black Flag when they came through Gastonia, so.
Yeah, that's a lot different, though.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, all right. Did we win?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, this is an all-time record. Like, this is a historical album. This album is so important. It is a classic. Yeah, we won. I'm giving it 5 stars just on the basis of, 1, how good it is, and historical importance. I'm going to give it 5.
I think this one gets like a half a star for its historical importance.
Right.
But I would say musically, in my enjoyment of the record itself on its own, it's about like a 4-star record.
Okay. So you'd say, what, 4.25 is where you sit?
4.5 would be the total.
Oh, yeah. Half star. Right.
Just for its importance. But like, yeah.
Yeah. I might be at a 4.5 just on music. And then, yeah, the half star for historical significance. And
yeah. Like, it really can't be overstated how important this record is.
Yeah.
If personally, musically, and like, it is really, really good, and like nearly as good as its legacy. Like, more than good enough to deserve its legacy on musical merit alone. But then it's also, their first beginning of their discography. Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. So thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate all of you. You can follow us everywhere at punklautopod or punklautopod@gmail.com. And our voicemail line is 202-688-PUNK. If you want to send us a voicemail that we play on the show, or send us a voice note to the email, any way you want to get at us, we will, if you just want to text a question, we can read it on the show and talk about that too. So where are we following you?
You can find me at Major Awards Band or Husker Dylan. Pretty much Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, if you want to see my little outfits.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah. And next week's episode will be our 350th episode. So we're doing something a little special there. So be on the lookout for that. And then patreon.com/punklautopod for the weekly audio. So thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.